right, now it's time for the top 5 best Freida McFadden books that I've ever read. On number 5 is One by One. One by One follows a group of friends who take a hiking vacation in the woods, and while on their way, they get lost, and the weather isn't helping either. There's a huge snowstorm, and slowly and steadily, one by one, their friends are getting murdered, and we really don't know who the killer is. Now, protagonist Claire McIntosh and her husband Noah have a sternest relationship. They're trying to repair their marriage, and they're hoping that this trip will bring them some solace. However, people are getting killed. And I do love this premise. One person disappears, then another, and one by one, everyone gets killed. And then, as people are getting killed, you're trying to figure out who actually the killer is. I absolutely love those settings. As the time passes, as the bodies are piling up, each one of those survivors, they're trying to figure out who actually is the killer. Like, is the killer among us, or is the killer someone from the outside who's just trying to take a revenge, and why? Now, this is not the book that I like because of the twist and the shock value at the end. I mean, there is a twist, of course, and it pays off really well. But I like these, and you'll realize these top 5 books that I've selected, it's more for how I felt. And it felt like a movie. It felt like I am in there from page one. Like, I did not feel tired. I didn't feel bored. There was no moment where I felt a bit like, this is dragging out. It felt like a really fast paced thriller. And then there were twists and turns happening that kept me intrigued throughout the entire book. I loved how atmospheric it felt. I felt like I was among those group of friends, and I was getting their most intrinsic thoughts directly to me. Like, I was watching a movie, basically. It was atmospheric in a sense that the setting, like, you're stranded in the woods. It gave me that feeling. It gave me a little chilly feeling because it was in the middle of the snowstorm. It gave me a panic kind of a feeling because, people were getting murdered, and they were panicking and also trying to figure out who the killer is. So I was feeling exactly how the characters in the book was feeling, and I think that was done really well. And early on, I had a feeling I could tell who the killer would be, but still, I wanted to be sure. And I didn't want it to be wrong. I was just taking a guess, but it still intrigued me, and I still ended up reading the entire book in one sitting. As soon as I was reading the first page, the first line of the book, I was in. It felt like I was watching a movie, and a really entertaining one at that. On number 4, we have The Teacher. If you love messy secrets, love morally gray characters, and jaw-dropping twists, The Teacher is such a ride. The story centers around a high school teacher, and there's a huge scandal at the school. There are rumors, there are things being said, and unfortunately, a student is in the midst of all. The story centers around a high school teacher and a scandal that rocked the school community. There were rumors, there were gossips, and unfortunately, there was a student at the center of it all. The more you read, the more you realize that absolutely nothing is as simple as it first appears to be. There were multiple perspectives in the book, and I think that was done really well. The multiple POVs kind of added to the end twist as well. That's all I'm going to say. You'd think that you know who the villain is, but no, there are twists happening till the last page of the book. This book slowly peels behind on what really happened, like uncovering it layer by layer, and the ending. Boy, if you know, you know. But I have to give you some trigger warnings. There is teacher-student relationship mentioned here. There are grooming themes involved here. There is sexual content with power imbalance as well. There are dark psychological themes here, emotional abuse. So those are the trigger warnings. If you feel like those would affect you, then I would suggest skip it. There was this one scene in the book which made me feel very uncomfortable, and there was no heads up. I had no clue that this is what it was leading into. And yeah, I felt uncomfortable. So I just thought I'll give you a trigger warning before you go into it. Why I like this book so much is again the multiple POVs, but specifically the ending. I never expected the twists to happen in such a way. I never saw it coming. Usually I could sense, even though I don't know who the person is, like who the killer is, whatever, right? But in this one, I had no idea. I thought that I knew exactly what happened, and I thought the story ended, but it didn't. And it surprised me so much that it's stuck with me to this day. I still think about the twist of this book. That's the only reason why it's on my number 4 of the best Frida McFadden books. Number 3 is Do Not Disturb. If you love creepy roadside setting and something is very wrong feeling, then Do Not Disturb absolutely delivers, and this book might be for you. This book is Psycho. This book is the Psycho movie by Alfred Hitchcock, which is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And as I was reading the chapters, I started feeling, hey, this feels very much like Psycho. And in the midway, I felt that I may be disappointed because I was like, I already know what happens in the movie and I know what happens in the book as well. But no, I mean, it does take that whole idea and then it does have the Frida McFadden's magical sugar put in there because the ending, the twist, they all are very fresh, very new. The story follows a woman who's on the run and she finds this stranded motel in the middle of nowhere, and she really can't go anywhere else. So she ends up booking a room there. The motel is isolated, it's outdated, it's almost completely empty. The motel owner seems off, not completely terrifying, but then you can't pinpoint what's wrong with him. Like you get this unsettling feeling, but he never truly does anything vicious to anyone, but still creepy. As the night unfolds, it seems as this isn't just bad luck, right? There are things that are happening, there's secrets that are unraveling, there are motives getting murky, and then there is this sense of danger that keeps escalating with every hour. This one did make me feel claustrophobic. It felt exactly how I felt when I watched the movie Psycho. That's why it's on my top list, because it made me feel eerie. Even though I felt like the plot was already done, there still was a plot twist at the end, but I didn't read for that. I just went for the atmospheric eeriness that this book produced, and I absolutely loved it. I think at this point you already know what my number 2 and number 1 would be. If you've seen any other Frida McFadden ranking books, you already know what those two are. Yes, book number 2 is The Housemaid. I think this was my first Frida McFadden book that I've ever read, and it's just so close to my heart. This book has a special place in my heart, and I think from that point onwards, I started reading a lot more thriller books than before. So yeah, you get a special place on my list just for that. The ending, it gave me such a dopamine hit that I became a thriller girly since then. I don't think before that I either did not read any good thriller books or I wasn't into thriller books that much, but this book made me change. And I'm so thankful for Frida McFadden for that, for giving me The Housemaid. The story follows Millie, who is desperate for a fresh start, and she ends up getting a housemaid job for a wealthy Winchester family. And she thinks that everything's going to be all right. That's the perfect situation. I got the job into a wealthy family. What can go wrong, right? But she's a live-in housemaid, so she's living with a family as well. But since the beginning, she feels like something is off. The wife is so unpredictable, so volatile. There's some really strange house rules that Millie and everyone has to follow. It's weird. And then the attic that Millie was staying in, it locks from the outside. So little by little, Millie starts to realize that this family is not a normal family. Something is up with this family. They might have some really dark secrets behind. And she then as nosy as she is, ends up uncovering them. Oh, the ending. The ending is so good. I was thinking the completely wrong person was at fault here, but no, the twist was definitely shocking. And yes, it was the ending, but also there were little breadcrumbs that Frida McFadden was leaving throughout the chapters of the book. And as a reader, I would be like, yeah, since I've read thriller books, I would take notice of them. But it led to such a shocking twist that, I mean, my jaw was dropped for the very first time reading a thriller book. The kind of books that you start reading at 9 p.m. and suddenly realize, oh, it's 2 a.m. already and I have finished the book. And then you're just staring into nothingness, thinking about the entire plot and the ending. That was me. That was absolutely me. And I know a lot of you were too. It's been a while since the movie has come out, and I absolutely love all the characters that are being played, but I haven't seen it yet. I have yet to watch the movie as well, but I think they did justice to the roles. Yes. Since The Housemaid became such a huge success, I think a lot of other books, a lot of other authors tend to copy or take inspiration from this setting, which I think is commendable. So good job, Frida, for that, for thinking about this book. Now, do I care about the other books in the series? Not as much as the first book, to be honest. Second one is fine. It's a good read, but I didn't care much about the third book. It's not the worst read, but it's average, it's subpar. Now, you sure know what my best Frida McFadden book of all time is. It's Never Lie. It's my favorite thriller book, my favorite Frida McFadden book. Yes, I said it, and I'm standing by it. And I know if I ask any single person, I'm that confident. If I ask any single person who's read Frida McFadden's book to tell me what their favorite book is, it's gonna be Never Lie or The Housemaid. And it's for a reason, because these are just the best books of Frida McFadden's. Like, she has three layers. There's the absolute worst, the ones that I shared. Then there are average ones, which you read, you like it, one time read, that's completely fine. And then there are top tier ones, and The Housemaid and Never Lie are on that list. Never Lie is absolutely wonderful because it is very different than The Housemaid, and it just read like I was in a movie. Just like some of her other books, as soon as I read the first page, I felt like someone hooked me up in the Matrix, and I was in the movie. I was in the Never Lie movie that was being made, and I was the protagonist. I was experiencing things. It was a surreal experience. I loved reading this book so much. If there is one Frida McFadden book that I could read every year, it's this one. If you like snowed in the middle of nowhere, isolated vibes, locked house vibes, then this book is for you, and it's elite. The story follows a married couple who are isolated in this remote mansion in the middle of nowhere because they're trapped due to a snowstorm while they were house hunting. This mansion, this home that these couple are staying in for the night, once belonged to a really famous psychiatrist who disappeared years ago. They have no neighbors, they have no cell service, they have no mode of communication, they hardly have any food, but they need to spend the night there because it's just pouring snow and you can't go out for help. So you're basically in a locked home. Now, as they're stuck in the house, they're trying to figure out the food situation. They're trying to find things that they can use to survive the night. And as they're exploring the rooms, they find that in the psychiatrist's office, there's this hidden door. And when they open it, they see shelves full of cassette tapes. And these cassette tapes are the psychiatrist's therapy sessions of her patients. They're the recording of those. And as they start listening to the tapes, it starts getting darker and darker. And at one point, it becomes so creepy. And in the midst of all that, they're also trying to figure out their living situation currently. They feel like they're not the only two people in the house. They sense a creeping presence in the house, and they're trying to figure out everything. And they're also trying to survive the night there. As the recordings start getting darker and darker, they also want to figure out like what happened to the psychiatrist. Like infamously, she disappeared. And so while they're reading there, initially they were like, okay, these are some patient recordings. And little by little, they think maybe if we kept reading all those, we'll figure out what really happened to the psychiatrist who disappeared. And it starts getting a really dark, dark, dark. And then the secrets, when they get revealed, mind boggling, jaw dropping, amazed, eye opening, amazed. Some may say there are plot holes here and there, but I didn't find any because I was so engrossed in reading this book. I didn't get time to think about anything else. It just sucked me in. I was in that mansion. I was experiencing the isolation. If there's any book that's the most atmospheric thriller that I've ever read, it's Never Lie. I felt like I was in there. Yes, I've said that for other books as well, but not as much as this one. And as soon as I finished the book, the twist and everything that kept happening, I went back to the recordings and I'm like, oh, okay, this happened. Oh, I should have, caught on to it, but I didn't. And the twist, again, I'm going to say the plot twists were so well done. It was so good. And the fact that the plot twists were not just done for the shock value, it actually had a role in the entire story all along. That's why it's top on my list. Like, that's why it's my favorite Freida McFadden book of all times. While other books somehow failed to deliver the same way that this book did, this book aced it, in my opinion. Aced it, loved it, and will always love it. Okay, that is my official ranking for the worst and the best Freida McFadden books that I've ever read. From Never Lie, owning my soul, to some books that I just felt like I was staring into the wall. Will I read another Freida McFadden book if it ever comes out? Absolutely yes. Because at this point, the gamble is kind of turning me on. I mean, I'm like, will it be good? Will it be bad? I am still looking for the Never Lie Housemaid vibe. I also read her newest release, Dear Debbie. I gave it 3 stars. I quite enjoyed it. Of course, I finished it in 2 days, like every other Freida McFadden books I have ever read. But maybe I'll do a short form content on that. What's your favorite Freida McFadden books and which one disappointed you the most? Please comment down below and let's argue respectfully. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification if you love chaotic thriller vibes and brutally honest book rankings. Until then, I shall see you soon.